my name is Mac. Welcome to Hammer and Tusk Radio / YouTube / 360 TV Video Everywhere channel. I have with me Mike. Mike Gittin, say hi.
Hello.
I have with me Olivier, say hi.
Hey everybody.
And our guest of honor today in our first real episode, assuming this actually works, is Neel, who is down in the Bay Area. Is that correct?
That's right, Mountain View.
Mountain View. Okay, so Hammer and Tusk is a community dedicated to VR and AR and 360 content and the entire sort of emerging world of immersive content. My friends here are all interested in this for different reasons. Let's talk about why you're interested in this and how you came about this and the fact that it has nothing to do with your job. It's just a passion for you.
That's right. In my day job, I work at Google. I work on the Google Plus team. And yes, you can make jokes about Google Plus if you want.
I wasn't going to, but if you want to, we can.
I just opened that door.
Yeah.
But at night, I'm sort of researching virtual reality. I think it's a fascinating new field. I think it's going to change a lot of things. You know, education, simulations, training, medical science. I mean, you name it. There's a number of fields where virtual reality is really going to make a difference. I am trying to focus on entertainment, namely movies. I think there's a huge potential for virtual reality movies to be sort of the next paradigm-changing shift in movies. Just like when film projection was invented, people figured out a whole new way to tell stories. Before it was live act plays, there was, vaudeville, there was stage drama, but there was no concept of a story told in shots, in frames, in little edited snippets that could, evoke emotion and make you feel that you were part of, these characters' lives. So immersive virtual reality has the potential to take that to the next level completely. I mean, actually put the viewer in the action with the characters, feeling the story, just like they were actually there.
So clearly we profoundly agree. That's why we have a immersive content podcast in the first place. And I want to dive in on a couple things you just said. But before we do that, let's talk about why a guy like you with an engineering background, with an understanding of the implications of this technology across so many different verticals, chooses to dive in on the narrative element or the passive consumer element of the storytelling in the movie. Are you a movie buff? Are you a movie guy? Do you want to fight with me about Robert De Niro's best movie? Or how did you end up choosing this as the way to go?
Well, I love movies. I'm a movie buff. I'd like to be a movie guy. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. But then somehow along the way, I sort of got into engineering, and I found that I liked that too. And it seems to pay a little bit better than movies did back in the day.
It does.
So I was like, oh, let's make some money. So here I am. But I never lost my passion for watching movies and hoping to make movies someday. So when VR came along, this seemed to me like a great opportunity to get in on ground floor and explore this medium. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make movies in VR, and so am I. And I'm hoping that I can be a part of the team or all the pioneers around the world who are trying to make this happen.
So when we were just talking about the sort of new medium and the new content format that evolves that medium, you said something that stuck with me. And so I'm aware of the idea that plays are a lot like film. In fact, when I think about theater and I think about film, I think of them as being similar. But it is specifically in one place where they differ, and I literally, in my entire life, I've never zeroed in on this, but it's in the editing. I can do a bunch of quick cuts to set the tone or set the scene or that kind of thing. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on what kind of technology evolution or narrative evolution or process evolution we're going to see in this 360 space that answers that? But don't answer that question. I'm going to stop my camera and start it again. Hold on. Here we go. So, do you have any thoughts that, relative to what you just said about editing being such a sort of level up, exponentially different factor on thespian storytelling, right? From a play to a movie, we got editing as this major achievement and this major technology, essentially. Any thoughts on what that looks like in VR, or what kind of technology or narrative evolutions we can see that will be significant?
Okay, well, let me start by setting some context on sort of how things are done in traditional film. In movies, the story is told through this concept of a frame, and it's controlled by the director. I mean, the director tells you what to see by pointing the frame at it. So if you're watching a conversation between two people, you see the two people in a framing shot, both of them together, and then you see one or the other person as they're talking, or you get reaction shots from the other person.
Yeah.
Now, if an explosion goes off in, say, the background of the scene or whatever, the frame pulls back to show the explosion. And then both the people react, and there's debris, there's people screaming, there's aftermath, all of that good stuff. The frame tells you where to look by cutting in visuals. It's telling you a story by showing you a lot of photos very, very fast, basically.
Yeah.
Right? But in VR, I mean, there is no frame. It's an immersive environment. You can't show the viewer where to look because the viewer can look anywhere. The viewer is in the same space as the people having the conversation. I mean, how do you get the viewer to look at the people having the conversation? How do you get them to focus on the dialogue, the acting, the story? How do you guide them to the story?
Where do we hide
and this
all the
is the challenge. Sorry?
Where do we hide all the cables?
And where do you hide all the cables?
So Mike works in news, and literally, I've seen how they make the news because of him, and there's a lot of technology and equipment and cables that goes into making that frame that you're talking about real. I mean, there's a whole bunch going on behind the scenes.
And a lot of people that don't want to give up the control of the frame either.
Yeah.
And that's why it does involve new ways of thinking, of filmmaking. Completely new ways.
That's what I'm trying to sort of figure out along with a lot of the other people. So I mean, if you break down the elements of a virtual reality experience, I mean, I think there's two. There's immersion with all of our senses. I mean, we take in information through eyes, ears. Currently, headsets are able to sort of just cater to those two senses, but hopefully down the line, as we get gloves or some sort of a haptic bodysuit, and people are working on these things, we should be able to use our sense of touch, for instance, all coming together to be able to enhance that sense of us actually being there, and this is, I know a lot of these accessories aren't there right now, but they will be there. I mean, as the content develops, people will build these accessories so that they can enjoy the experience more. Just like cameras got better, projection got better, now we have flat screen TVs in everybody's house and all the content is in HD. I mean, you make good movies and people will pay to be able to experience that stuff in a better way. That's what I feel. But the second thing is, apart from immersion, the second part of a virtual reality experience is interactivity. I mean, you can't expect people to be immersed in an environment and just sit there and do nothing. They have to be able to interact with the story in some way. And the story has to change a little bit at least based on their interaction. So there's an example, I mean, of, say, a monster chasing a bunch of people, right? So if the viewer sort of gasps or screams or says something that indicates that they are afraid or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the monster could essentially look at them or start heading towards them or something like that, to make them feel like they're a part of the story. And then the characters, they attract the monster's attention again, and the monster starts going back to them. But what you've done is basically involve the viewer in the story. You've made them feel like they're there being a part of the story. It's tiny things like that. I mean, if there's a conversation going on, the viewer is seated at the table with these characters, the characters could look at the viewer, or say something to the viewer, nudge them a little bit or something like that. It doesn't have to be significant, but it's little things that go to make the person feel like they're there, like they're in the story.